It was a cold October evening when a teenage girl named Emily pushed open the creaky door of Rusty's Roadhouse, a dimly lit biker bar on the outskirts of town. The low hum of chatter, the clinking of glasses, and the deep rumble of laughter filled the smoky airheads turned the moment she walked in. A small, frail-looking girl in ripped jeans, dusty boots, and a gray hoodie under a black leather vest that seemed several sizes too big for her. The vest caught everyone's eye, not because it was worn, but because of the bold white letters across the back that read, "Iron Wolves," the same emblem every man in that room wore proudly on their own jackets. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the strength hidden inside the human spirit, please take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe, because what happens next will remind you that some legends never die. Emily felt the weight of every stare as she stepped further into the bar. Few of the men at the counter started chuckling. One of them raised his glass and said loudly, "Hey, sweetheart, Halloween's next week. You sure that jacket's yours?" The room burst into laughter. She didn't flinch. She didn't even look at them. Instead, she walked straight to the bar counter, her boots echoing against the wooden floor. The bartender, an older man with tired eyes and a long gray beard, frowned slightly as he took in her jacket. "Where'd you get that, kid?" he asked. Emily took a deep breath, her fingers brushing the edges of the heavy leather. "Belonged to my dad," she said softly. "He was one of you." The laughter behind her faded to an uneasy silence. The Iron Wolves were not just any biker club. They were a brotherhood that had been around since the early 70s, tough, loyal, and fiercely protective of their insignia. They didn't take kindly to outsiders wearing their patch, but when one of the men stood up and walked closer, his expression shifted from suspicion to something more complicated. His eyes dropped to the bottom patch on Emily's jacket, the one that read "Founding Member" and the year 1971. Embroidered beneath it, he froze. Emily's father, Jack Steele Turner, had been one of the original founders of the Iron Wolves. To most of the men in that room, he was a legend, a fearless rider who had once saved their club from falling apart. But Jack had disappeared years ago after a tragic accident took the life of Emily's mother. The grief had swallowed him whole, and he had left the club, the town, and eventually the world, dying quietly in a hospital far away from the open roads he loved. Emily's eyes glistened as she spoke, her voice trembling but steady. "He told me the wolves were his family. The patch meant loyalty, respect, and never leaving your brother behind," he said. "If I ever needed strength, I should wear this jacket, so I did." For a long moment, no one spoke. The men stared at her, this teenage girl standing in their midst, wearing a symbol that meant everything to them. Then one of them, a burly man with tattoos crawling up his arms, broke the silence with a heavy sigh. "Steele's girl," he whispered, almost to himself. Another man, older, with tears welling in his eyes, nodded slowly. "I was there when she was born," he murmured. "Jack brought her by the clubhouse once, said she'd grow up tougher than any of us." The tension in the room melted into something softer, a mixture of sorrow and pride. Emily looked down, clutching the edge of the bar. "After he died," she said quietly, "I found a letter in his jacket pocket. He wrote that he regretted leaving, that he missed his brothers, and he wanted to make things right, but never got the chance." Her voice cracked, but she kept going. "He asked me to find you, to tell you he never stopped riding with you, even when he couldn't anymore." The bartender wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Deep silence filled the room, the kind that only comes when hearts remember what they've lost. Then one by one, the bikers stood up. They walked toward her, no longer laughing, no longer strangers. They looked at the jacket again, the faded stitches, the familiar insignia that once rode through storms and miles of dust and freedom. One of them placed his calloused hand gently on her shoulder. "Welcome home, kid," he said softly. Tears streamed down Emily's face. She had carried that jacket across states, through bus rides and lonely highways, looking for a piece of her father she could still hold on to. Now, standing in the heart of his brotherhood, she finally felt what he meant by family. They didn't need to share blood. They shared something stronger, loyalty and love that survived time and tragedy. That night, the Iron Wolves sat around their old wooden table. They raised their glasses in silence before the oldest member, the one who had known Jack best, stood and spoke to Steele. "He said he may be gone, but he rides forever in our hearts," and to his daughter, who brought him home. The men roared their approval, their voices echoing through the bar like thunder. For the first time in years, the Iron Wolves laughed, not out of mockery, but out of joy and memory. They gave Emily a new patch, one that read "Honorary Rider," and helped her sew it just beneath her father's S. As she looked at the jacket, she could almost hear his voice in the wind. Proud and free outside, the night air was crisp and full of stars. Emily climbed onto one of the old bikes they'd restored just for her. Her father's old Harley, cleaned and gleaming like new. As the engine roared to life, the wolves surrounded her, their headlights cutting through the dark. For the first time, she felt peace. Her father's legacy wasn't gone. It was alive in every rumble of the engines, every bond of brotherhood, and every road that stretched endlessly ahead. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share this video. Help remind the world that love, loyalty, and second chances never truly die. They just keep writing on special request. Comment below. Legends never die. If you believe that family is more than blood, and that true bonds last forever, and as the engines faded into the distance, one truth remained clear: sometimes the smallest person can carry the heaviest legacy and keep it alive with nothing more than courage, love, and an old leather jacket.